the most reform-minded head of service we have had in recent times, Mrs. Winifred Itza Oyo, here represented by my brother, the Permanent Secretary, Common Services in the Office of the Head of Service. The chairman of the governing board of NIMASA, who is the actual brain box behind the phenomenal changes we are experiencing in NIMASA today. A general who is retired but not tired, General Jonathan India Garuba. Our chief host, the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Transportation, Federal Republic of Nigeria, one of the most experienced and hands-on permanent secretaries in service of Nigeria today, Mr. Zachary, here represented by the Director, Maritime Safety and Security, DMS, my brother, Danjuma Dauda. The Chief of Naval Staff, here ably represented. The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Environment, here well represented. Heads of agencies, I can see the Rector of Man Oron, I can see Shippers Council, I can see Nigerian Ports Authority, I can see, of course, NOSDRA, I can see all the other agencies. There are several of them here. We recognize all of you. I can see NIWA, Nigerian Inland Waterways Authority. I can see NOSDRA. And of course, I won't forget NNPC at all. The representative of the GMD NNPC is here. The executive directors of NIMASA. The truth is that many people don't understand that in NIMASA, there's no DG, there are no executive directors who have just one team. All of us are teammates working towards a common purpose. I can see the Executive Director of Maritime Labor and Cabotage Services, experienced banker, actuarial scientist, Mr. Gambo Ahmed, the Executive Director of Finance and Administration, a technocrat who is now holding a political office, Dr. Bashir Jamo, the Executive Director of Operations, an experienced electronic engineer who is better known in the media circle than the fact that he's a well-trained engineer who is a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Engineer Oluwarotimi Joseph Fashaki. And indeed, our resource persons, moderators, let me recognize especially two women who have made so much impact that we can't afford to ignore them if we are talking about the marine environment. One is a former Director General of NIMASA, now Executive Secretary, Abuja MOU, Mrs. Mfon Usoro. The other one is our guest resource person for today, President Wista Ghana. She came all the way from Accra this morning to honor us with her presence, to grace this occasion with her presence. President, you know, for those of us who belong to Wista, she's our president. And for those of you who are not part of Wista, President Jamilat, she came all the way from Accra this morning. Our moderator, who is the president, Chartered Institute of Transport and Logistics, my brother and friend, whom I'm very proud of, Ibrahim Jibril, the Magaiki of Zao Zao Kingdom. Directors of NIMASA, directors from sister agencies, our former Director General, whose record every day I work hard to catch up. But let me confess that it is not easy to catch up with his record. Barrister Temisa Omasaye, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, friends of the environment, advocates of clean seas and ocean, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you all to the 2019 celebration of the African Day of the Seas and Oceans with the theme, Harnessing Nigeria's Marine Biodiversity for Accelerated Economic Growth. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's celebration provides us with an opportunity to deliberate on the exploration of the enormous resources embedded in African seas and oceans and how to exploit them to our advantage as a nation towards our economic prosperity. Marine biodiversity, as you are aware, consists of different species, their richness and abundance in world's oceans and seas. The sustainability of these diverse species, which are abound in African seas and oceans, is not only important to us as Africans, but also of direct economic benefit to us as a nation. The global community is looking more and more towards the seas and oceans for economic prosperity. According to an Economist Intelligence report, China's ocean economy contributed a whopping $962 billion US, or 10% of the GDP of China in 2014, employing 9 million people. The United States, similarly, valued its ocean economy at $258 billion US in 2010, or 1.8% of her GDP. Ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that these statistics underscore the inherent and diverse opportunities which Nigeria can, as a nation, use for rapid economic transformation and development, especially in this era that the emphasis is on economic diversification. In recent times, Nigeria has witnessed increased growth in population and urbanization. As a result, we must sustain the increasing population through wealth creation from the various blessings of the diverse organisms and ecosystems that abound in our ocean and seas. For Nigeria as a nation to achieve sustainable economic growth, we must develop an interest in the conservation, exploration, and exploitation of our marine biodiversity. Nigeria can achieve accelerated economic growth and development through the regulation, exploitation, and protection of our marine biodiversity through a comprehensive and articulated approach, which would not necessarily impact negatively on the environment. And for us, sustainability is about exploring and exploiting the oceans without compromising the future. The need for government and critical stakeholders here present today to put in place measures which will facilitate and promote sustainable use, protection, and preservation of the abundant resources in Nigeria's seas and oceans cannot be overemphasized. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, as a safety administration, NIMASA is committed to focusing its attention on formulating policies that are in tandem with the development of our marine biodiversity towards enhancing Nigeria's economic growth in line with government agenda for the diversification of the economy. In this regard, we are committed to the prioritization of the blue economy as a veritable tool for economic development, improved livelihoods and job creation while preserving the health of our ocean ecosystem. Marine environment management remains a critical focus area for the agency, and our efforts in this area have been recognized by the International Maritime Organization. It is pertinent to mention that NIMASA has concluded and forwarded to the executive arm of government 6 IMO instruments on marine environment management for ratification. Some of these instruments include the Hong Kong Convention for the Sale and Environmentalist.
This is the network service of the NTA. We now join our outside broadcast crew for a live.
If not, somebody will just
I'd like to have you join us again on the live broadcast of Senate plenary today, Thursday, the 25th of July, 2019. Well, the Senate is continuing screening of ministerial nominees today. Yesterday, Wednesday, the 24th of July, 2019, Senate screened 10 nominees, and today, well, 8 nominees have been scheduled for consideration. And then any moment from now, that screening will commence in earnest. We have with us here one of the senators, Senator Hussaini Yakubu from Kogi State. How will you describe this screening that took place yesterday, and what are we expecting today?
Well, screening of yesterday is a wonderful one. And if you can see, there is unity of purpose, unity in diversity. Yesterday in the Harrow Chamber of the Senate, you can see that as at yesterday, you can't really say that this is PDP, this is APC. We work in unison yesterday. And so far so good. We are able to screen like 10 ministerial nominees yesterday, and they all performed wonderfully well. And today we believe that we will screen more than that. If what happened yesterday can equally happen today, I think we'll go far.
All right. Thank you very much for time.
Thank you very much.
Well, at the moment, we'll now go straight to the red chamber in order to follow the proceedings, because any moment from now, the screening will commence.
You see where we say make you stay there?
Well, the first nominee for today's screening has mounted a podium. Tao Aladura. The Senate is set to commence the screening for today, and he is the first nominee to mount the podium.
Distinguished Senator Tao Aladura, a senator who served with us in the 8th Senate, former chairman of Senate Committee on Petroleum Upstream. No. And is the nominee from Ondo State. Distinguished Senator Aladura, on behalf of my colleagues, I welcome you to the Senate. And this screening provides an opportunity for you to give us highlights on your biodata, if you wish to, or if there is anything that you have not included in the CV, but you think it's important for this Senate to know, you can do so. And the Senate is ready for you to make your presentation. You are welcome. Point of order, Senator Bamidele Opeyemi.
Mr. President, sitting as chairman, distinguished colleagues, I come under both Order 15 and Order 43. Mr. Chairman, as you know, and as my distinguished colleagues know, I will never be frivolous in raising this point of order. The Order 15, matter of privilege, and Order 43, personal explanation. Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, the media have been awash since yesterday over an explanation on which the general public deserve and they need a simple explanation. It has to do with our tradition of asking former legislators to take a bow and leave. Mr. Chairman, why this is important is that members of public need to be told and they need to understand that former senators, former House of Reps members, former State House of former legislators are subjected. Mr. Chairman, this is important. Mr. Chairman, they need to know that former legislators who served in the National Assembly are subjected to the same level of screening. What we have done since yesterday was to screen. Nobody has been confirmed, Mr. Chairman. They will submit their credentials like every other person. After listening to them, the senators also go back to study those credentials. The essence of this is just for us to establish that they are who they claim to be in their documentation. And, Mr. Chairman, it is important that we emphasize to members of the only reason why members are asked to take a bow and go is because the questions would have been asking them to clarify certain things are things that we already know. The Constitution of Nigeria is very clear as to qualification for appointment as a minister. You must be qualified to serve as a member of the House of Representatives. And all of us are aware of the qualifications. So if people had been through this and they had had the opportunity to serve in the National Assembly, it is taken for granted. However, that does not prevent the Senate from still scrutinizing the documents that they have submitted, like the documents submitted by every other nominee. I just felt members of public should be told in clear terms as we commence the business of the day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I don't think there is going to be any debate on this. It's very clear. This issue is very clear. The Senate has this tradition, and the tradition is that members of the National Assembly who are nominated for appointments generally, whether ministerial or otherwise, have this privilege of taking a bow and go. And as we have explained, this remains the position of this Senate, like the previous sessions of the Senate. We are not covering anyone by so doing. We are still going to scrutinize the submissions by those nominees. And of course, if there is anything that disqualifies a nominee, the fact that the nominee passed through the National Assembly chambers does not protect that nominee from being disqualified. But so far, this tradition of the Senate is maintained. And I sustain your points of order. Leader of the Senate. Point of order, Bashir Ajibola, distinguished.
The chairman, order 1B, 1A and B, and order 3, rule 2 of the order. My name is Dr. Ajibola Bashir. I represent Osun Central. Yesterday, in addition to the point of order sustained, issue was raised as to whether the resolution of the committee of the whole house that the privilege in terms of confirmation hearing should be extended to 6 legislators. Reference was made to order 3.2 yesterday to say that it does not extend to those in the state parliament. With respect, it's not a proper interpretation of order 3.2. With the indulgence of the chairman, I beg to read the paragraph 2. Nomination of senators to serve as presiding officers and appointment of principal officers and other officers of the Senate or on any parliamentary delegations shall be in accordance with the ranking of senators. In determining ranking, the following order shall apply. Senators returning based on number of times re-elected, senators who had been members of the House of Representatives, the senators elected as senators for the first time. Mr. Chairman, the essence of this provision clearly is as to ranking, as to nomination for the purpose of what is stated in order 3 rule 2. 1, to serve as presiding officers and appointment of principal officers and other officers of the Senate or any parliamentary delegation. The stated rule of interpretation is expressio unius ex exclusio ulteriors. The express mention of one thing is to the exclusion of others. I would just say that there is no express provision on the issue of whether it can be extended to the speaker or not. And by order 1, Mr. Chairman, in all cases not provided for hereinafter or by sessional or other orders or practice of the Senate shall by resolution regard this procedure. So the procedure that have been adopted in conducting this exercise to extend the privilege to other state legislators is well covered by the order of this Senate. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, please, we are not going to start debating on this thing. We have set a standard for ourselves. We are going through with our standards. There is no need for any debate. Actually, in order to resolve this problem, maybe at one particular time, this kind of thing may even be put into our standing orders so that it's clearly spelled out. But for the purpose of this present exercise, we stand by what we started yesterday. But going forward, we will even make it clearer by putting it in our standing order so that everybody understands what it is. Leader of the Senate. Distinguished Senator Tao Aladura, you can address the Senate, please.
The Senate President, is sitting as chairman today, principal officers of the Senate, my distinguished colleagues, both left and right. I have learned a lesson quickly that it is always easy to be there and somebody else to be here. But, Your Excellency, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to come before you, having been nominated by Mr. President as a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I also wish to acknowledge the presence of my governor, the governor of Ondo State, Arakunrin Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, who solidarized with me by coming to the floor of the Senate with me, and my brothers who are also in the House of Representatives from Ondo State. I have copiously in my CV stated my biodata. It's a very small document, and I deliberately made it so that it will be easy for my colleagues to go through. I'm sure by the time you flip through in 5-10 minutes, you will have seen who I am. I only want to use this opportunity to plead with my colleagues that there were some jobs that we started in the 8th Senate, which were almost completed. That is very dear and close to my heart, especially in the petroleum industry. We had the PIB, which had been on for almost 20 years, and in the 8th Senate, we tried to split the PIB into 4. The Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, the Administration Bill, the Host Community and Impacted Bill, and the 4th one, which is very, very important, which is the one that will dictate how much money we are going to get in this country. We call it the Governance Bill. Please, and please, I will plead with Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues that this bill, especially the PIGB, had been passed, but it has not been assented to by Mr. President. Please revisit this bill for the good of Nigeria. It is very, very important for Nigeria to move forward and earn more from the natural resource of crude oil that God had given to us. There is also another bill that we had done to second reading. We had even conducted public hearing on it. The Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Agency bill. Everybody knows that the world has moved from crude to clean energy and other things. This one is very important for our nation, and the bill should also be completed. Having said all those, Mr. President and Chairman, I wish to thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to stand before you and let you know that everything about me is before you, and I will be ready to answer questions if need be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Distinguished colleagues, we recall that we also agreed on the standard procedure when we have our former colleagues nominated and are screened here. The 2 leaders of the Senate will normally talk on our behalf. So I'll start with Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as the chair. My name is Inaya Baribe. I represent Abia South, and by the grace of God, Minority Leader. Tao Aladura is a good man, our good friend. thank God that after having told us the work that you have done on the governance bill, part of the PIB that the 8th Senate worked very hard on, that it was not assented to. Not our fault, we did our job. Now you're on the other side. So we will expect you to make sure that you convince your colleagues in the executive that we didn't mean any harm in making sure that the petroleum sector of Nigeria that gives us all the revenues that we sit on today, that this reform is taken very seriously by the executive. Being there, we are sure that you are going to be a good ambassador of this chamber. And we look forward to working very closely with you. We don't know whether they are going to put you in that sector, but whichever sector or whichever place that they put you, don't be like the ministers who are very good to come and call all of us now and would not take calls even from Senate leaders when they become minister. We know you are not that way because we have interacted with you here and you are a part and parcel of us. And so we do not have any hesitation in going ahead to say, represent us very well when you get there. Thank you.
Senate Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I would like to support the position that has been expressed very clearly by the minority leader. Tao Aladura, his choice by Mr. President into the executive of this administration, I think is a very, very good one. I didn't know him before, but we spent 4 years together on the upper deck, of this chamber. And I know during a lot of deliberations, during a lot of the deliberations on most issues, Tao Aladura has been a great confidant to me. And a lot of the ideas, sometimes very critical ideas about certain issues we share together. We exchange views and opinions of most issues that come before this Senate. And I find his counsel and his temperament on a lot of issues is gentlemanly and always reassuring. I know he has passion for the petroleum industry and the reforms in that sector. And he really led the position that brought this very intractable reform process into 4 separate bills so that we can be able to address, the petroleum industry reforms in a much more consensual and convivial way. Having participated together with him in all those efforts, because I was part and parcel of all the effort that was made in passing these bills, we realize, sir, that it's a very good opportunity that now that you are going to work on the other side, even if you are not taken to the petroleum industry, at the Federal Executive Council level, you will bring your knowledge and experience of the hard work that we did on these petroleum reform issues before the Federal Executive Council. That if possible, the kind of snags that prevented the passage of the governance aspect of that bill, be sent back to us with the same kind of conclusions that we have reached. We really went through this thing for 4 years. We worked on it very thoroughly, so that it can come out as an executive bill and represented to the Senate for easy passage. Because the kind of hard work that has gone through that bill and its consideration should not be lost. And I think your presence at the Executive Council will be able to help us revive that kind of hard work that we have done so that it comes to fruition for the benefit of all Nigerians. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, knowing Tao Aladura and is a very thorough and very disciplined legislator, I know it's going to be a credit to this administration that such a person to be brought to the other side of governance. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I plead with you and recommend that you allow Mr. Senator Tao Aladura to take a bow and leave the chamber. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, our leaders. Before you take a bow, let me re-echo what the two leaders have said. When you held sway here, you are a very committed senator. You chaired the Senate Committee on Petroleum Upstream, and you did extremely well. You worked so hard, especially for the PIGB, or PIB generally splitted into about 4 segments. It was our desire and hope that the bills could be passed and assented to, but that didn't happen. Let me give a small story of how the transition of this petroleum industry bill has been. In 2007, when I came to the Senate, in the 6th Senate, this bill was sent to the Senate and the National Assembly, and then it took a life of its own. We ended up with so many versions of the bill, and we didn't even know which was which. It was a struggle to find the genuine bill from the executive arm of government at that time. In the 7th Senate, it came, and it was not concluded by the National Assembly itself. In the 8th Senate, the National Assembly took the initiative to split that one bill into about 4. And we passed the PIGB, and of course, there were some issues. In this narration, it's clear that there were efforts, disparate efforts by the executive in the first instance, in the 6th and the 7th Senate, a solo sort of effort. And then in the 8th Senate, there was a solo effort by the National Assembly, and all failed. The option we have today is for the executive and the legislature to come together and look at how to go about this business of the PIB. Because since we tried individually and we failed, I think the time has come for us to sit together, work out either one petroleum industry bill or separate bills, but doing it together will give better chance of having a bill or bills that will be worked on by the National Assembly and assented to by the executive. As soon as our committees are reconstituted, the petroleum-related committees will swing into action, because I think we have all the materials that we need, right from 2007 when we entered here, up to the last day of the 2015, the 8th Senate. All the materials are there. All we require is to have that synergy so that we're able to come up with something that will provide to us more revenues, but also support and encourage and sustain investments through reasonable profits by those in the business of petrol. So let me also say that it's not a mistake that we have about 7 or 8 former members of the National Assembly going to the cabinet. That to us is a clear message that that Federal Executive Council is supposed to be and should be and ought to be an executive council that will always understand what the National Assembly is doing. Because we have all the representation, you are very well qualified people, committed people. And in fact, is a mixture of young and fairly old. No, there's no very old. Senator Aliu Aladura is only 71 years old. Sorry, how old are you?
69.
69, sorry. That's not old. 69 is not old. He's just beginning to get there. So we have very good representation. So we want to urge you, just like our leaders said, that you represent us there well. Give the message, you know our sentiments very well, you know what we want for us to function very well, and we are prepared to function very well. So with this, I want to put the question, those in favor that he takes a bow and go, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Zoom Senator can take a bow.
Senator Tao Aladura just passed through his own screening. Well, the same tradition that the Senate adopted yesterday for former parliamentarians to take a bow and leave is actually the same thing that played out today. Senator Aliu Aladura has been accorded that privilege. Well, but before then, Senator Bashir, they raised point of order. Going back to that issue that the public needs to be enlightened on why the Senate takes this particular stance on the issue of allowing former parliamentarians to take a bow and leave, citing order 3 in the Senate standing orders, which really defines what ranking means in the Senate. But then the Senate President, however, said that they will go back on that decision and that this state to put to rest this issue of raising point of order on whether to allow a parliamentarian or a former parliamentarian to take a bow and leave. He was now saying that it could be necessary to now enshrine this in the standing order rule books of the Senate to put to rest this kind of issues in future. Well, the Senator Aliu Aladura, well, the minority leader and the majority leader did make some comments on him, which is the practice here, and him particularly pleaded with the Senate to ensure that they revisit the petroleum industry bill and the Nigeria nuclear regulatory bill because of their potential importance. Now a new nominee is coming in now for screening. The nominee is Mustafa from Borno State. Bashir was born on the 4th of July 1966. He attended Gamburu 1 Primary School, Maiduguri, between 1972 and 1978, where he obtained his primary school certificate. Between 1978 and 1982, he attended government secondary school, Damagum, and attended the University of Maiduguri between 2000 and 2002. Audio. He has a BSc in sociology and anthropology.
The nominee from Borno State. Honorable Mustafa Shahuri was the Minister of State Works and Housing. On behalf of my colleagues, let me welcome you to the Senate. And we already have your CV, but if there is anything you want to highlight or emphasize, you are at liberty to do so. And if there is anything that is omitted but you think will be important for the Senate in this exercise, please feel free to tell the Senate. So once again, you are welcome and you can address the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Senate President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Deputy Senate President, Principal Officers of the Senate, distinguished Senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Good morning, sir. Mr. President, distinguished Senators of our great country, it affords me a great pleasure to present myself before you for confirmation as Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, bringing with me my wealth of grassroots political experience, which, as you will all agree with me, is a fundamental requirement for this most important assignment for which Mr. President has nominated me. Having said that, may I also intimate that I am delighted to have this rare privilege and distinct honor to give a small talk profiling of my background. Distinguished Senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I am Honorable Mustafa Bashir from Maiduguri, Borno State. I am here as a ministerial nominee of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, seeking your confirmation to serve our fatherland and people of great nation of Nigeria. Mr. President, sir, distinguished Senators, as I have stated in my introductory remarks, I am a grassroots man. My desire to serve the ordinary people led me into partisan politics, sometimes back in 1995, when the then military government under leadership of General Sani Abacha partially lifted the ban on political activities. I started my political career as a delegate on non-party basis. I contested and won the seat of a councillor in Lamislaja Bomari on zero-party basis. I contested and won the seat for the chairman of Maiduguri Metropolitan Council. I was twice elected as a member of House of Assembly, Borno State House of Assembly. I was also elected as member of the House of Representatives from 2007 to 2011.
Order.
Mr. President, sir, distinguished Senators, having made my modest and humble contribution to the development of my state, I aspire and got elected again in 2007 as member House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, representing Maiduguri Federal Constituency, an election that enabled me to serve my country at the national level, there at the House of Representatives. In addition to the basic responsibility of making laws, I have equally participated in other functions and responsibilities assigned to me. These, my distinguished senators, gave me an opportunity to serve not only my immediate constituency, but the country as a whole. I was also appointed member I was also appointed Honorable Minister of State, Power Works and Housing between 2015 to 2019. Your Excellency, distinguished senators, throughout my political life, I have, to the best of my ability, served and represent the ordinary Nigerians in the course of discharging my duties in the various offices I found myself, particularly in the National Assembly and later as a Minister of State, Power Works and Housing. I have traveled around the country to inspect and supervise projects, including the construction of roads, housing, bridges, and power projects all across the length and breadth of this country. Equipped with the wealth of experience gathered at the various levels of our democratic setting, at local, state, and federal level, spanning over 2 decades of experience, I believe I'm well equipped to render my invaluable contribution in the onerous task of nation building if given the opportunity to serve. I make this assertion believing faithfully and counting confidently on this hallowed chamber that you will find my nomination quite worthy of your kind approval to serve our fatherland. Finally, I wish to end this short presentation by earnestly thanking you. I'm also deeply grateful to all of you for the great honor of hearing me speak, and I'm pleased for your time and attention. Thank you once again, sir.
Very distinguished colleagues, the nominee served as a member of the House of Representatives between 2007 and 2011, as we can see in a CV. And of course, it is our tradition here that those nominees who were once members of the National Assembly enjoy a certain privilege and concession. And that is, this is a place they served their fatherland from. So we normally extend the privilege, but we also request our leaders to speak on our behalf. And I will start with Minority Leader. Speak on behalf of this. Minority Leader, speak on behalf of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as the chair. Baba Shehure, I have interacted with him as Minister of State in the Power Works and Housing Ministry. And let me tell my colleagues that during that period, we heard of fights in the transport ministry between ministers and ministers of state. We heard of fights in the agriculture ministry between ministers and ministers of state. We never heard. We also heard in the petroleum industry, but we never heard in the minister of, I'm going somewhere. I'm going somewhere, sir. Very, very, very soon.
Distinguished colleagues, there was never a fight in the Ministry of Petroleum Resources because the President was the Minister of Petroleum Resources and he never fought with the Minister of State. So you are wrong on that count.
And so, I take your intervention under advisement and is very well guided. But what I want to say and what I want to point out is that this may be a good opportunity for us to let the executive arm know that ministers of state must be given very clear schedules of duty. Should be given so that we will not have any such, because if he had used his bulk and weight. It would have been a different thing. And so he exhibited a lot of decorum, which he got from the House of Rep in the National Assembly. And he took everything in good faith. And so the Senate would wish to ask him that this time let them not make you Minister of State, so that you will now be a senior minister. You must graduate. But even then, we want to reiterate that it is necessary for the executive to know that it is very, very good for each person to know exactly where he's, so that people don't get it from. And so we thank you, and we say we wish you well when you go to the executive again. Thank you.
Mr. President or Chairman, I want to come under personal explanation. 43. Do I read or I go ahead? By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor any debate arise upon explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate and when the make. So, I have not made the thing, but I think my 43 arose out of the last submission, and I felt I'm duty bound to make a personal explanation if I'm privileged by the chairman to do so, by this order.
Even though he didn't submit to me the terms, and I want to imagine that it's not a controversial thing, I will allow you to, you can go ahead.
He has been bending the rules, so don't do this one. That's very serious. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to see this opportunity to inform the minority leader that there has always been clear-cut schedule of duties for ministers of state. Yeah. I was once a minister of state of power like him, and I think, and I've been interacting with various ministers of state up to this stage. So this government, President Buhari's government, has clear-cut duties for ministers and ministers of state. Yes. So it's not that you tell us what to do. Yes. Thank you. Well guided.
Distinguished Senator Donjo Mogoja, your point of order is well sustained. Senate leader.
Order. Mr. President, sitting as the chair, my distinguished colleagues, I would like to start first by affirming the point of order that has been raised by Senator Goji, who has both been a minister and a long-time serving senator. I want to further affirm that when I was in the civil service, during the time of Obasanjo, Hakim Baba Ahmed and I and several other permanent secretaries of the civil service were responsible for actually defining in each ministry the roles of the minister and the roles of the minister of state with specific schedules of duty. The kind of conflicts that emerged were not because of schedules of duty were not divided. It was more of a personal conflict between individuals, which was an ego kind of issues that arose in terms of some relationships that have not really been well sorted out and defined. So the issue of whether there was conflict in schedule really does not arise. But I would like to go back to the issue of Baba Shehuri. Going through the CVs, Mr. President, sitting at the chair, you could see a person who has a very rich political pedigree. It's a person with a lot of grassroots political experience, right from the municipal level and up to the national level. He had gone as a member of the House of Representatives 2007 to 2011. And by the array of the people who have accompanied him, who are also accomplished politicians, I could see Kumalia there. He's a person who has discharged and paid his dues as a political operator and as a political fighter. Mr. President, this was a person who came before the 8th Senate, and the 8th Senate, in its wisdom, considered him as a person who is worthy of appointment as a minister of the Federal Republic. In addition to that, I have interacted with the Borno State Caucus of this Senate, and all the members of that caucus, without exception, have affirmed that the candidate is suitable to represent the state in the Federal Executive Council. With this in mind, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I would urge this Senate to ask Mr. Bashir to bow and leave the chamber. I so recommend.
Distinguished colleagues, is it the view of this Senate that this nominee, a former colleague, a grassroots politician from Borno State, takes a bow and go? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Now you can take a bow.
Mustafa Bashir from Borno State, a former member of the House of Representatives, has just been screened by the Senate. Well, there was no much really no question of answers being a former member of the House of Representatives. Well, the former House of Representative member is the immediate past Minister of State for Power, Works and Housing. And then the minority leader of the Senate, Enyina Badebe, well, did raise some issues there when he was talking about some ministers of states having conflicts with their ministers. But then the Senate President and Senator Danjuma Goje gave some explanations where they explained categorically to the minority leader that there's no been time where the main ministers are having issues with their Minister of State counterparts, that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, there's a clear-cut duties among the two. The next nominee to be screened is Abubakar Aliu from Yobe State. He served as a deputy governor of the state for the past 10 years, making him the longest-serving deputy governor in recent history. He has mounted the podium, set to receive questions from the senators.
Order. Buhari of the Senate. Buhari of the Senate, can you stop making noise, please?
Distinguished colleagues, the nominee before us distinguished colleagues, the nominee before us is the immediate past Deputy Governor of Yobe State, His Excellency Abubakar Aliu, who served Yobe State as Deputy Governor very, very well. No, I borrowed the words of Senator James Manager. On behalf of my colleagues here, Your Excellency, let me welcome you to the Senate. We are already in receipt of your CV, but you can make emphasis on those things that you think you need to emphasize. And of course, if there is anything that you think the Senate should know and is not included in the CV, you are at liberty to say those things. And also, any other thing that you feel will be helpful for the Senate in the screening process. So once again, you are welcome and you can address the Senate.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency, the Senate President, other principal officers of the Senate, distinguished senators who are my bosses, by extension, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I greet you this morning. I am Engineer Abubakar Aliu, an engineer by profession. I was born 14 April 1966. I started my school in my early days at 7 years old. During that time, you have to reach 7 years before you start school. So after finishing my early studies, I went in to professionalize in civil engineering, which I bagged a degree in civil and water resources engineering. I started work with Borno State government in the year 1988 as a technical officer. I was then posted immediately to assist in building a road between Pulka to Kirawa border in Borno State. After then, I went back to study further. I obtained national diploma, then in civil engineering. Then I went back to obtain higher national diploma in civil engineering, highway and transportation engineering. I felt I need to professionalize more. I went back to the university and enrolled in Part 2 in University of Maiduguri after my NYC and obtained a degree, a Bachelor of Engineering in Civil and Water Resources Engineering. After then, I returned back to the service, and by that time, Borno and Yobe were separated. So I came back to my state, where I belong, Yobe State, and get involved in moving the state. I started as a principal engineer in Ministry of Integrated Rural Development, and subsequently I was posted from here to other places, and I became the Managing Director of Housing and Property Development Corporation. From there, I was posted to Ministry of Housing to serve as the Acting Permanent Secretary. From the Acting Permanent Secretary, as event unfold, my brother was the governor, together with your distinguished colleague, Alhaji Dr. Ibrahim Gaidam, who was his deputy then in 2007. And you all know what happened to him. May his soul rest in peace. When he died in 2009, immediately Alhaji Dr. Ibrahim Gaidam invited me to come and serve with him as a deputy governor, of which I accepted. And we were there for 2 years before we went to the polls, and we got elected in 2011. We served our first time between 2011 to 2015. The second term, we went back again to the poll and got elected to serve the second term. And because of the reason that you all know, we served the state consecutive 10 years. So here am I now before you. In fact, I was even nominated to come to the Senate. I went for the screening, I finished everything, but for some reasons, specifically to allow the campaign in our state to go without rancor, because we were faced with so many challenges coming from the frontline state, and if we add it up with some political disagreement, it will mess up the place. So after I resigned, and my boss, Dr. Ibrahim Gedam asked me, of which I have to say yes. I have never disobeyed him throughout our 10 years with him. He asked me to allow my elder brother, who is with you here, Senator Ibrahim Mohammed Boumel, to take up that position. I let it for him. So they asked me to go for the reps, but already some people were doing their things at the reps level. So I thought, why should I go and disrupt that place? So I say, no. It is not that I look down upon the reps, no. I just wanted to allow them to do their things. It's just about service. Anything that comes along, leadership is service to the people. Anything that comes, let them bring it, I will do it. So in the meantime, I will allow myself free and help everybody, help the party and help the state to take to the next level. And that's what I did. So I was just called upon 3 days ago that I have been nominated to the to serve as the Minister of the Federal Republic. So here I am with you today. I'm happy, I'm glad to be here. This is the first time I've entered this beautiful Halo Sambas with these prominent personalities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. I'm Kabiruga from Kano State, represent the people of Kano South. Mr. President, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this nominee, and that this nominee happens to be from Yobe State and a very good friend of His Excellency, the Senate President. So I should say, and he has been a loyal deputy governor for 10 years. I have known him for many years. And the person that was given an opportunity to take another slot in politics for this House of Rep, but he refused. He's been nice and humble. So, Mr. President, in view of this, is also a fellow member of Nigerian Institute of Engineers,
Nigerian Society of Engineers,
Nigerian Society of Engineers, and also a quorum member. So I believe he's qualified to appeal to my colleagues. He has also talked about his governor who has been very loyal to him. I will appeal to my colleagues. This is a gentleman to the core. I shall at least ask them or appeal to you that let him bow and go. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Jones, Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President, seated as the chair. My highly respected colleagues, James, if your war manager CON, yes, representing Delta South. Mr. President, of course, this man that is standing before us as presidential nominee to remain minister is from Yobe State. And his story is very interesting and touching too. But we congratulate you. Humility pays in this business. And every other business, humility pays. And it's because of your fantastic humility that you are here standing before us. For the first time, you have entered this place. This place is called the Halo Chamber. And of course, when I came here for the first time in 2003, many years ago, by the grace of God and by the grace of my people, the Delta South
people in my state. I met your brother here, the late Senator Mamanali, a very vibrant senator. And between 2003 and 2007, he prepared himself to become governor of Yobe State. And I remember what happened. And this is not the kind of forum to tell the full story, the little that I know. Mr. President, seated at chair, my highly respected colleagues, in this place, we have traditions, some of them unknown to the public. And I have been here. I have screened and screened and screened without promotion, but I'm here. So I know the traditions of this place. This nominee is from Yobe State. And I don't want to go too far. One tradition. I agree with Senator Gaya, who of course also met me here, and he knows the tradition here too. So, Mr. President, seated at chair, I second the motion, although not clearly a motion, but I second him, and that is the opinion and the view of almost all the members. True or false? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. Are you putting the question for us? Thank you. To do what? So for the witness to take a bow and go. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President.
I know I will put the question, but before I put the question, please, my colleagues, permit me to make my contribution from here, because this nominee is our nominee from my state. He told a story, and that story is supposed to be instructive. He showed a very loyal person, a very humble person, a very committed person, and a very competent person, because he's an engineer by training, and he worked and practiced engineering. In my state, we are a family. And any other person would have done the same. We ensure that we remain focused and united in our state so that we are able to develop our state. We have development challenges. Our former governor did so well with very little, and the present governor has taken over and is doing so well, following the footsteps of the former governor. And we are proud of our nominee. This nominee is one nominee that we all agreed to support in our state. And I want to thank you, my colleagues, for giving us the privilege for him to take a bow and go. So is it the view of the Senate that the nominee takes a bow and go? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You can take a bow.
The Senate has just screened Abubakar. The Senate has just screened Abubakar Aliu from Yobe State. He too just took a bow and left. And then it appears the two of them that have been screened at the moment actually were satisfactorily met with the expectations of the Senate, as the Senate, the whole House unanimously agreed that they should take a bow and leave. Well, this is the nominee from the state of the Senate President. And the Senate President also concurred that the state unanimously agreed that he should represent them in the Federal Executive Council. Huh? Now the next nominee coming in for screening is Major General Bashir Salehi Magashi, retired. He's from Kano State. He was born in 1949 in Kano City. He attended Gidan Makama Elementary School from 1955 to 1958 and later City Senior School and Gwale Senior School, Kano from 1959 to 1962. The nominee attended Barewa College, Zaria from 1963 to 1967, where he obtained his school certificates and later proceeded to the Nigerian Defense Academy in 1968. He was afterwards commissioned into the Nigerian Army in 1971 as a member of the 5th Regular Combatant Corps. He also attended the prestigious Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria from 1979 to 1980. He's now mounted the podium, ready to receive questions from the senators.
Distinguished colleagues, before us on the podium is the nominee from Kano State, Major General Bashir Salehi Magashi, retired. Let me, on behalf of distinguished senators, my colleague, welcome you to the Senate chambers. And we already have your CV, but we can still emphasize and highlight any issues that we think need to be noted by the senators for the purpose of this screening exercise. You may as well talk to issues that are not reflected in your CV if you think they are also important for the Senate to note. Once again, you are welcome and you can address the Senate.
Thank you, sir. The President of the Senate, the principal officers, distinguished senators, I stand before you, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to avail myself for the screening exercise as a nominated or a nominee for the ministerial appointment in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'm aware that it is your responsibility here to confirm or otherwise on my nomination. I pray that I will be considered. Thank you very much, and I will proceed.
Distinguished Senator Barrow-Jibrin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barrow-Jibrin. I represent the North. Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, let me say before I ask my question that the nominee before us today is someone I know very well, a distinguished leader, one of the leaders in Kano, who had served this country in various capacities. He was a ministry administrator. We cherish him very well as our leader, as one of our leaders in Kano. And he has done very well to take Kano to where it is right now. You did very well, nominee. The question I want to ask you, I don't want you to elaborate. Don't say much about it. What I want you to say is either yes or no. What you did for us in Kano and other parts of the country, how you served with merit. Once you are able to be confirmed by this August Senate and you become a minister of the Federal Republic, will you do the same thing? My answer, I don't want you to elaborate, just say yes or no. By time you want to give the answer. Spin doctor. Thank you, nominee.
Okay.
DSP.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting as chair. First, I'd like to extend my congratulations to the nominee for Mr. President deeming you fit to be nominated to serve as a member of the Federal Executive Council. I've had the opportunity to go through your CV. It's a very, very rich one, indeed. You know, General, that one of the biggest problems we face in this country today is that of insecurity. You will also recall that before Mr. President took office in 2015, most of the Northeast was ravaged and indeed taken over by Boko Haram. But the President, drawing from his experience as a retired general, was able to wipe out, for the most part, indeed, or at the very least, degraded the capacity of Boko Haram. But there's been some resurgence of late. Not only is it resurgence of Boko Haram, but even insecurities in that state, including banditry in most of the states. Now, my question now is this. As a former general, should you find yourself privileged?
What?
As a general, as a retired general, should you find yourself privileged to serve in the defense ministry? What advice or what would you do differently? What would you do differently than what the current or the former occupant of the office did while he was Minister of Defense? Thank you very much.
Senate Leader.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I personally would be doing hide and seek with my colleagues without, first of all, revealing my own relationship with the nominee. If this place were a court of law, I think I would just recuse myself and not be part of the judgment. But it was not a court of law. This is a place where we tell the truth to each other so that we come to some understanding and a common position on issues. The nominee before you was, and I say is, partly responsible by being among you here. He is partly responsible by being among you here. I was a humble lecturer in Ahmadu Bello University in 1990 when he was appointed military administrator or military governor of Sokoto State, at that time my state, and he forced me out of the university and appointed me as a commissioner of agriculture. I had no other calling at that time than academic work. But since then, as my fate, he turned my fate, and later on, I found myself in politics. So for me, my distinguished colleagues, it's now a time for me to pay back. Yes. my distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, here before you is an accomplished general and an infantry general and a good man. This is a man who has fought in the Civil War and commanded so many formations, was the commander of the Brigade of Guards, was commander of the 2nd Division, led the ECOMOG team to Liberia, did so many other military assignments, and has a lot of merit. So, without much thing, if you look at his CV, you will affirm the position that I am taking. So, my distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, this is a candidate, this is a nominee, and one of the best that the President has nominated to join his cabinet. Therefore, I would urge my colleagues, without any prejudice to anything anybody might want to say, to please ask my friend and general to bow and leave the chamber.
Chief Whip. My name is Oji Uzokalo. I represent good people of Abia North. General, how will you handle the issue of I will come to the motion. It's an appeal, it's not a motion. Act and order. I still do my work as Chief Whip. As an experienced general who is very, very competent, if you are put in the Ministry of Defense, how are you going to reduce the infighting among security chiefs? Because it's also diminishing the result we could have been gotten to be able to fight insecurity in Nigeria. Because the security chiefs, you are not hearing me? Not so much. As a general, how would the rivalry between service chiefs, because they are fighting among themselves. They are. It's true. They are disagreeing among themselves. Maybe I should use that language. How are you going to settle that matter? And also as a lawyer, which you are, how will your relationship between the judiciary and the military is going to be? Because I know you are a very competent lawyer also. I've encountered you as a lawyer in many places. So how are you going to handle the issue of insecurity in Nigeria? Because if God permits and you are given Ministry of Defense, how can you coordinate the services totally and advise Mr. President rightly to be able to solve this problem? Thank you very much.
General, you can respond to the questions, please. Respond to the questions.
Let me start from the last question raised by Senator Ojikalo, my distinguished senator. What I can say right now is to believe that the Nigerian military is operating under the Defense Pact and the enabling laws that govern the services. I may need to study that and be able to make my own contributions. But as you rightly said, and it's common knowledge to all of us, that the cooperation between the service chiefs, all their relationships, is not very cordial. I put that in quote. My answer to this is very simple. The creation of the relationship has been in existence since the creation of the office of the CDS, the Chief of Defense Staff. In the process, all our operations that we conducted internally and externally were governed by the principles of the hierarchy of command. And where the echelon is weak, probably the downwards will also be very weak, or will see the opportunity to capitalize on the errors of the top. I'm not saying this is happening now, but regards to the service chiefs, in my own view, we have come to a situation where you find that each commander or each service chief is trying to please the nation. And anytime one of the services or all the services were able to conduct an operation, you find radio coverage that the Air Force has done this, the Army has done that. Thank God we are not near the coast where we can say the Navy is also involved. If the Navy is around here, then the three services would have been in the same collision course. In this situation, which I serve as the ECOMOG commander, the NICON Nigerian Contingency Commander, we are only operating as an administrative unit overseeing the needs, the aspiration, the welfare of our troops in the combat zone. The FX commander, I wouldn't mind calling name, my best commander in the field, General Olurin, was our field commander. He coordinates all the activities of the Senegalese army, the Liberian army, and all other ECOMOG country that is under the ECOMOG. And he is the operational commander, and he does that all. Anything to do with the welfare and everything about the troops is entirely on the contingent commander of that operational, of that country. So we cater for our needs, we cater for everything. But in Nigeria today, there is what we call a command structure. That command structure is now being seen as a weakness. The military is always ready to acknowledge performance, but we always don't want to be here that we have not performed. And I think the theater of war, we encourage it, we the civilians, because every day you find that one problem has arisen either from the northeast or from the central or from anywhere. And then you need troops to cover that area. We have almost disseminated all our forces. And I don't think the current structure is the true reflection of our manpower requirements in this country. We are only having divisions, probably by name, but I don't think they have the required manpower to manage. I am very surprised when you find operation be conducted single-handedly by a unit, by a service. What we do in operations is a combined operations, right from the platoon commander to the war, to even the commitment of a field marshal, if need be, is always coordinated in accordance with the speed and actions of troops in the field. They cater for the reinforcement, they cater for the operations, they change places where there is a terrain that is rugged and you need only the infantry should go. Where you don't have facilities to go in the referent area, you employ the special forces, mainly from the combatant units. These combatant units will certainly undertake the training, the task that is given them by virtue of their training and expertise. That is how we conduct operations. But today, as you rightly said, Kanu, which I think is a common knowledge, I can accept that, the service chiefs are curious or are trying to express their capabilities to the people who don't know the operational concept of troops. But I assure you, looking at the concept, the defense part, the act that provided for all these things, I will assure you we will do our best to ensure a restructuring, whatever it can be possible for us to do, we will do it for the interest of the troops themselves, and then to secure our country properly with minimum cost and influence.
General, I would advise that you try to be concise, because this is a security thing and almost everybody here wants to ask a question or the other. So try to be concise, but of course address the questions so that you take as many questions as possible. You can continue with your response.
I think the question of Deputy Speaker, Senate President is also in line with the first. And I think what I will do differently is to ensure that rules are obeyed, procedures is followed, welfare is maintained, and every other thing that will make a troop to be happy and motivated to perform his role. I think that's how I go about your questions.
Well, ordinarily, maybe some of is again one new thing we are going to face. Maybe for those that will be here next time, I think when you take security people, some of the issues would be better discussed in closed session. I believe that from the answers already given by the general, we know his capacity. And I want to assume that the motion on ground that he takes a bow has already gotten a seconder. So is it the view of this Senate that he takes a bow and go? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You know, you can take a bow.
That was the screening of Bashir Magashi from Kano State, Major General retired. Well, he just took a bow, but before that time, some senators have made one or two comments, especially those who've known him too well. Well, the Deputy Senate President, Omar Gege, demanded to know what the nominee as a retired general will provide in the fight against insurgency. The Senate leader well, described him as an infantry general who has fought several wars and now believes that his nomination is one of the best done by President Muhammadu Buhari. Well, the chief whip also put forward some questions bordering on insecurity as well. But then the retired general, who is also a former ECOMOG commander, assured them that there is need for some restructuring and that certain decisions will be taken to ensure that our insecurity challenge is improved. But then the president of the Senate had to remind the Senate that matters of security most times are better discussed in closed doors. And so resolved, so to say, that he takes a bow and leaves. Now the Senate is expecting the next nominee who will be coming in and unexpectedly respect the former governor of Bayelsa State, Timipre Silva, to come into the Red Chamber and defend his nomination.
The president will still have time for one more person.
Timipre Silva is from Bayelsa State and is coming into the chamber led by the senior assistant to the President of Legislative Matters, Senator Itainan. Timipre Silva is the first, I beg your pardon, he had his first school leaving certificate at Jeremy Central School, Lagos in 1976. Before he now proceeded to Government Secondary School, Brass in 1981, where he obtained his general certificate of education and then Bachelor of Arts in English from the University of Port Harcourt in 1986 and a doctorate degree in international relations from the University of Business and International Studies, Geneva. He's now mounted the podium for his screening session.
We have before us His Excellency Timipre Silva, the former governor of Bayelsa State, on the podium, the nominee from Bayelsa State. On behalf of distinguished senators, I want to welcome you to the Senate chambers. And we are already in possession of your CV, but you are at liberty to emphasize on some of those things in the CV that you think the Senate should take a special note of. And of course, if there are any other things that are not in the CV but will be important for the Senate in this screening exercise, you can talk about them as well. It's an opportunity to address the Senate, and I invite you to do so. You can speak to the Senate.
Mr. President of the Senate of the Federal Republic, the Deputy Senate President, our leader, the leadership of the Senate, let me specially recognize the senators that represent me from Bayelsa State, Senator Biobarakuma Degi Aremiayon, Senator Doye Diri, and Senator Erujakpo, and also recognize every distinguished senator here. My name is Timipre Silva. I was born 55 years ago in a tiny island community in Bayelsa, at the bottom of the Nigerian map. I always tell people that if you are standing on the shore of the Atlantic Ocean by my village, and there is nobody after you, you are probably the last man standing in Nigeria. I started out my political career on the legislative corridor. I was a member of the Rivers State House of Assembly in 1992. I actually hoped to grow on that corridor, but unfortunately, I was not opportune to get to this exalted level. But I moved on, fast forwarding everything I did to 2003, when I became a special assistant to the then Minister of Petroleum. During that time, we had one of the most successful bid rounds. I was acclaimed as one of the best in the world, and we grossed for the Federal Republic of Nigeria about $1 billion. From there, I moved on in the year 2007 to become governor of Bayelsa State. During my time as governor, I espoused and initiated the amnesty program, which I sold to the then President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Before I became governor, oil production activities were at an ebb in the Niger Delta, and the country's production had reduced drastically by up to 1 million barrels a day. But after the amnesty program, which I initiated, our earnings increased because our production moved up to about 2.5 million barrels a day. Presently, I am chairman of the Nigeria Maritime University, or Krenkoko, and also chairman of the Oil and Gas Free Zone Authority. Thank you, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, sitting as the chair. What is good for the goose is also good for the gander. And therefore, since we bent backwards to accommodate a member of the House of Assembly, which decision we will still have to revisit. Today, I plead that we also bend backwards and give to another loanee from the PDP. Now that we have gotten here, let me also state that the caucus of the Bayelsa State in the Senate have told me that they have met with him and they are in good standing with him. And I also was informed this morning that the state government has even gone ahead to congratulate him as their son and as somebody who has the PDP DNA. Thank you, Mr. President. It's very good that when you train people that they can now move. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me round up. Let me round up by congratulating Chief Timipre Silva and stating what I stated yesterday. The Niger Delta region is very crucial to Nigeria. And if there is anything that leads to insecurity in the Niger Delta region, we also want to plead with you like we pleaded yesterday, that in the federal cabinet, that you do your best to make sure that peace continues to reign in that area. I so submit.
Senate Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I have the privilege of fully endorsing the position that has been stated by the minority leader, minus the innuendos, because I do believe, that Governor Timipre Silva was one of the founding fathers of the APC. I have gone into his documents and found the earliest membership card that I also possess of our party, which was dated 8th February 2014. That was when the APC as a party was formed. Therefore, the antecedents of Timipre Silva in the PDP has been erased by this particular receipt and membership card. Without much ado, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, I agree with the minority leader that what is good for the goose is also good for the gander. And with that, I recommend to my colleagues for our eminent governor and member of APC and also member of the River State House of Assembly to bow and leave the chamber. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you very much, our leaders. Before I put the question, let me also remark that what the governor of Bayelsa State has done and what the caucus of Bayelsa State in the Senate did show patriotism desire to work together to make not only Bayelsa develop and be peaceful, but take Nigeria to the next level. This is a shining example of what our politicians across the country should be doing. We are supposed to serve the same people, regardless of our political platforms. As for the Loni syndrome, I think the minority leader feels really threatened. I pray that you don't turn into a Loni yourself one day, and we'll surely remind you if you do. But let me also congratulate the nominee himself for also working hard to ensure that there is peace, there is tranquility and stability in Bayelsa State. So with these remarks, let me put the question now. Those in favor of the motion that the nominee takes a bow and go say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You can take a bow.
That was the screening of Timipre Silva, the nominee from Bayelsa State. Well, he was also asked to take a bow and leave because he's a former member of River State House of Assembly. Well, both the minority leader and the majority leader spoke on his nomination. And then the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, also commended the Bayelsa State caucus in the Senate and the state governor for their open support for the nominee, as he also commended him for his commitments to ensuring that there was peace in Bayelsa State. At the moment, the Senate has screened 5 nominees. They are Tao Aladura from Ondo State, Mustafa from Borno State, Abubakar Aliu, Yobe, Bashir Magashi, Kano, and Timipre Silva. That's the last person that was just screened. So the arrangement for this screening is that the Senate will always have 2 sessions. First, it's morning session and afternoon session. Now we expect the next nominees coming in.
Order! Senator Magashi, take your seat.
Well, the next nominee is the nominee from Kogi State, Ramatu Tijani. She was born on the 12th of June 1970 in Wuse, Abuja. She had her primary school certificate between 1976 and 1982 from Dawaki Primary School, Suleja in Niger State. She had a West African Examination Council certificate from the Federal Government College, Mina, also in Niger State, between 1982 and 1988, before she proceeded to the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, where she had a certificate of remedial studies. She also had a Bachelor of Urban and Regional Planning from the same Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria.
We have before us The nominee from Kogi State, Hajia Ramatu Aliu, I want to, on behalf of the distinguished senators, welcome you to the Senate chambers. We already have your copies of your CV, but you can still highlight those things in the CV that you think need special note by the Senate. And in fact, you may even speak to those that have not been included in the CV for emphasis. Once again, you are welcome, and I want to assure you that this Senate is very, very, very gender-friendly, and you are at home. You are welcome. You can address the Senate.
Thank you all very much. Mr. President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawan, Mr. Deputy President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished Senator Ove Omo Ogige, principal officers of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, my distinguished female senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Again, I will say the senator of my constituency from Kogi State, Senator Dino Melai. I am privileged to stand before you today, this August Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, by the will of the Almighty and the confidence of President Muhammadu Buhari, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Distinguished Senators, sir, I am Ramatu Aliu, a town planner by profession and a politician by vocation. Distinguished Senators, sir, born into the royal but humble family of Alhaji Mamman Bawang Allah, the Aganchu of Kakanda Abuja, Lokoja local government, Kogi State, into the household of Alhaji Sid Ali Mamman, a quintessential civil servant who has taught me from the onset that hard work, humility, honesty, education, and most of all, the fear of the Almighty was all he had to bequeath to me. And by these I lived throughout this sojourn, my most distinguished senators, and I still live till date. Your Excellencies, sir, you may wish to permit me to take you down a little memory lane, sir.
You may go ahead.
Your Excellencies, I will take us all back to one fateful day in the year 2003. Perhaps I might be free to call it an encounter with destiny. But whatever it is, changed my life. And I believe for the better. Moving from my office then to Gwagwalada Specialist Hospital, I made this encounter with a Nigerian citizen, a common man, on his bicycle, taking his wife to the labor room. I posed to assist just like every other Nigerian because we realized she could neither sit on the bicycle nor walk to the labor room. But in this option, I will tell you I have no regrets till today, my distinguished Senate President, because we got there, she went into labor, but immediately, he realized there was a lot more beyond taking her to the hospital, which he did as a reflex action. He needed money. He didn't even carry. He was in a rush. The system said you had to get a card, you have to pay. He needed somebody to stay with the wife. He needed to pay. He needed to source the fund. We became family because we had to stand in there. Let me cut this story short, distinguished Senate President, sir, and distinguished senators. She had this baby, but a stillbirth. The baby she took in and the wombs for 9 months. Very touching. In this agony, after discharge, we took her home to a suburb called Dagiri of Gwagwalada Area Council again. We were welcomed into this squatter settlement, I will call it. Then greeted us was what they call a home, and to most average Nigerians, that still serve as home. A structure constructed or made of a leather, both skeleton and roof, then the frame of bamboo. We were touched again. Then I realized there was a life other than that which I lived. And I realized that there was a lot more besides certificate that we can selflessly do as citizens of this nation to give back to the society, to this great nation, that which we've been privileged to have, Mr. Senate President, sir. Not only seeing that, but in getting into the room, the bed was just the bare mat. In this agony, she sat with relatives holding her as she wept. Welcoming her was the hot water. Now again, distinguished senators, takes us to an existing problem that still lingers on today. Housing, women empowerment in this country. Of course, the problem also of maternal mortality, which is at a high rate. Housing, because to most Nigerians, we call a house or we define a house by whatever it is that gives us shelter or wherever we can lay our heads. But beyond that, sirs, how ready are we to revisit some of these issues, sir? Sir, we are still standing here today on records is that within the range of 17, 18 to 20 million, debatable, the housing is still in deficit. Your Excellencies, we have the slums to upgrade. We have the urban areas also to renew. But we cannot do it alone, but by advocacy, sir, by your support of this great House Senate, we know you do us proud. You've always done it, and we believe in your capacity. And we also believe in this administration of President Muhammadu Buhari that a lot will be visited. But besides all, the tears will be wiped off a Nigerian woman on the street. And the hope for the less privileged and for the girl child, sir. This woman will not let you down. Thank you very much, sir.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, in Baribe, Abia South, in keeping with what we have already established, that this chamber is very, very gender sensitive. And also because the Kogi caucus has wholeheartedly with their legs and their hands endorsed that we in the Senate ask you to do the needful, and in recognition from all you have said now, that you didn't go to the other room. We want to say that you should now bow and go.
Senate Leader.
Mr. President, sitting in the chair, my highly distinguished and respected colleagues, I do endorse the position that has been put in place by the minority leader, that a recognition of the gender sensitivity of this Senate, and also in recognition of the high caliber of person of the nominee that is before you. I have gone through the CV of the nominee, and from the eloquent presentation that she has made, you can see the rendition of her experiences is coming from both her head and her heart. Mr. President, sitting in the chair, my distinguished colleagues, I endorse the position of the minority leader that this dutiful and highly intelligent lady, beautiful, I said beautiful, Order. This beautiful.
Duty, he said. I heard
well, Senator, do you know my name?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I want to come under order 53.6. With your permission, I read. No senator shall impugn improper motives to any other senator. The Senate leader said dutiful, but you guys are impugning another meaning to it. By your crying, I felt my leader should be protected, sir.
The Deputy Chief Whip, your order is fully sustained. Leader, continue.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting in the chair, my respected colleagues. All I'm trying to conclude is that in keeping with the traditions, fine tradition of this institution, this highly intelligent lady should be allowed to come and bow and vacate the chamber. I so move, Mr. President.
The colleagues, thank you very much, leaders. Before she takes the bow, let me say that this Senate is and will remain gender sensitive. We have not many, in the Senate, but high caliber, high quality, and performance. Between yesterday and today, we had two great ladies who addressed us. And I'll be speaking the minds of everyone here that they have given a very good account of themselves. In fact, we don't clap in the Senate, no chair. Otherwise, we would have chaired those two ladies for the great performance they have put. We wish those ladies who have been nominated and who will be ministers by the grace of God all the best, and they have a home in this Senate and in the National Assembly. We will support you all the way in your given assignments. You can now, before you take the bow, let me put the question, and of course we know the answer. Those in support of the motion that the nominee takes a bow and go say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You can take a bow.
Thank you very much, sir.
Ramatu Aliu from Kogi State takes a bow and then leaves, trying to leave the chamber. She is the second female nominee to be screened by the Senate. It is the position of the Senate as well to be gender sensitive, and therefore it resolved that all female ministerial nominees will just come in, present themselves, make one or two clarifications or submissions, or one or two things they think the Senate should know that is not contained in the document they submitted, and then take a bow and leave. And that is exactly the same privilege that has been accorded to Ramatu Aliu from Kogi State.
After a period of 1 hour, when we will resume to continue our business. I so move. 2 o'clock. 2:30. I move before that the chair move to plenary to report progress. I so move.
I second the motion that the chair do report progress.
Distinguished senators, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Yes.
The Senate in the Committee of the Whole resumed consideration of the request of Mr. Presidency in C for the confirmation of nominees for appointments as ministers of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The nominees answered questions from distinguished senators on a number of topical issues. The nominees screened are Senator Tao Aladura from Ondo, Honorable Mustafa Bashir from Borno State, His Excellency Abubakar Aliu from Yobe State, Major General Bashir Magashi, retired from Kano State, His Excellency Timipre Silva from Bayelsa State, and Hajia Ramatu from Kogi State as ministers of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? The Leader of the Senate.
The Chair, distinguished colleagues, I move that we suspend further consideration of the ministerial nominees.
I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Senate Majority Leader.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Of today's screening. Now the Senate has now adjourned plenary to go out for break and then reconvene back by 2:30 this afternoon, when they will now screen the second batch of today's ministerial nominee. I am Ignatius Nko, and on behalf of our offside broadcast crew, we'll say bye for now. We'll now join our studios to continue with the program for today, but by the time the screening commences, resumed by 2:30, we'll still link you back so as to follow with the screening. Bye for now.